Bravo. Wonderful. Can everyone hear me okay? Sarah, you should check out, you're getting all your applause icons right now. You're getting all your emojis. That's great. Um, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, but before I continue, with so much gratitude to Susan and to Jeff for inviting me to be here with you all, I just wanted to just set the stage with one observation, which is I'm not entirely comfortable with the terminology, even with masterclass, because it kind of implies that what you're about to hear for the next 30 minutes is this fountain of knowledge that's coming from me to you, and I'm going to make it better for you. And that's not a view I subscribe to whatsoever. I would dare say that this is closer to workshop than anything else. And just because I happen to be a few years older than you and I've played the piano for a few more years, I may have a different perspective, but that does not make yours somehow like lesser than what I see. So I'm going to ask you some questions to start. And again, these are loaded questions. I'm thinking back to when I was in your situation and you're in the hot seat and when I was in the hot seat. And especially with this piece, Ballade Number One, which I think Jeff and I even talked about this publicly back in the summertime at the festival, that it's the minefield of minefields. It's so, like, how many times have you played this for a master class? And then you multiply how many times and then how many different opinions, and people are going to live and die by that sword. It's like, so when I ask you these, I really mean like, and you may not have thought about them before, and that's okay. And that's kind of where I want to start, if that's all right. So, and anyone else who has an observation and comment from those gathered, please feel free to type it in the comment chat. I think that'd be really neat too. If you, oh, I play this too, I have this thought, because I mean, that's what other artists do when they workshop. And I'm not sure why we don't do that more in music, that it's always one teacher and one student and everyone else is dutifully scribbling down notes. So, okay. So with that being said, the closest analogy I like to think about with this is acting. It's actually like acting, right? I mean, we have our script. And so you've described on one hand what the piece does, and you're describing your relation to it, which is, you enjoy it. And so my comments are also going to kind of revolve around what's actually coming through across the screen. Because as with acting, we all have emotions, right? Because we all feel very strongly about what we feel, that should make us all great actors. But that's not true, right? There's something that makes an actor your favorite actor. Who's your favorite actor? They do something to you, right? Like or there's some combination of the character, the script, the dialogue, the emotion. But when you think about what went into that, the craft, like they really thought through, or maybe they were directed by a director who thought through it, but they really tried to figure out, like, all right, how do I not only feel this, but how do I now project that and make the audience feel what I'm feeling? That's a very different thing. So we all need to start with this raw material of the emotion we feel for it. But now let's talk about, so it's going to sound kind of like nuts and bolts, but if you always come back to that, I'm looking at this like as a script and saying, all right, you, Sarah, you want to create this slow waltz. And I want to actually ask you a little bit more specifically about that introduction. How does that work? The very introduction, which, by the way, I personally, I really loved something you did in the very beginning, not slamming that first C. That was really neat, because it's like, I am now playing the first ballade, and then it's just, if you just, boom, it's like, oh, and that gesture of not doing anything and just kind of, and it actually drew me in as a listener. Just know that. I mean, these are the kind of things that we're not even aware of, maybe, but it's, again, acting, stagecraft, music craft. Just to keep things moving, I sense that you listen to this opening melodically, correct? What if I were to ask you now, how would you construe it harmonically? Because we have that we need to hear too, and that part didn't come through as clearly as a listener. I heard your melody, but if you were to analyze this, and I don't mean that you need to do a lot of Roman numerals, maybe you have and you can do this, but tell me, what is your idea of that opening right up to the right up till the beginning of that slow waltz at moderato, what does it mean? Like, how does it work harmonically? Okay. Now, when we talk about harmony, let's just break it down into like really objective terms. Like, I'm going to take your prolonged question and just for the, I'm going to put a technical term and just say, does the chord change? Is there a chord change? Right? And so the question is, where is there a chord change at all? In everything up to that first little double bar, the first 6, 7 bars of the, where's the first chord change? Possibly. I think, well, if you think about that first bar, and I'm going to just, I mean, that's all one harmony, right? And then the question, and this is really up to you. We're not going to dwell on this much because this passage, poor thing, gets killed every time in a lesson. We never get past it. That's different, right? Something is different from becoming. And then you point to is that crazy chord with. Okay, so I see one chord, another chord change with it, and so just once, and I'm going to fold this question into it. Take it until it sort of resolves that prolonged. What did you call it? The prolonged emotion. Hmm? Question. Take it until the answer. I want you to tell us where the answer is to that question. All right. So just the opening until the answer comes, and instead of just try it out, like think about it before you play. How would you convey now to me the chord changes as opposed to the emotion that you put into melodic turns? But okay. So you think that was the answer? You know where your audience is right now. I'm going to show you, even though everyone's not on the screen. This is where we are. What? I still feel it. Like, thinking like, does that sound like, the end? Like, if you think about it, if I just do, kind of wants to go where? Ah, there. Thank you. The tonic. We're in G minor, right? Ballade in G minor, right? So, and by the way, bravo. I was like getting really excited because I heard chord changes. So you see, that's something. It's a small shift of thinking and listening, but it's like you need to give all that information to us. Otherwise it's like your character is doing something, but we don't know why the motivation was. Now we know. Okay, and then where exactly is that G minor resolution? And go ahead and play the notes around it. Go ahead and play the notes around it. Ah, okay. Pause for a second. Take a look at the page with me. Just stare at it. It's okay. Just, and everyone, if you all know this. And it's the starting of something. But didn't we just say that's where the question is answered, right? It's a one chord, right? Now, what happens in any other piece where we go, is that an up sound or a down sound? It's a down, right? So what's going on here? The tune starts, and everybody, including you, including me, when I played this, I haven't played it in years, but I remember I was like, and it started, and so I never ever resolved. You need to resolve. So, and then this is the thing, cadences. So let me zoom out for a second. So before I throw all of these theory terms, and for everyone, I know maybe you haven't all studied, but we're just talking in basic terms about what is the harmonic motivation beneath, because we all hear in these terms, whether we're aware of it or not. And one thing we can objectively look for is a cadence, right? It's like seeing scene number one change scenery to scene number two. It's that clear. It's got to be super clear, right? Where the character leaves the stage, right? And so we have a cadence, right? And a cadence falls down. That's its definition. Like the very root of the word cadere in Latin, Italian, it means to decay or fall down. So that's non-negotiable. That's as non-negotiable as someone leaving the stage in a Shakespeare play. It says exit, you've got to exit, right? So what does it mean when Mr. Chopin actually puts the exit at the entrance to the next section? And that's sort of the conundrum here, right? So thinking through this together with you and say, okay, so we want to fall down there and yet we're starting something. So one thing that kind of emerges is, and this is where it's exciting because I want you to think about it. How would you go from, I'm not going to play it for you, I want you to do it, and then really create that sense of a closing on the G minor, and then you have to think, what happens after that? Take 2 seconds, look at it, and just from the C minor chord. Okay, that's better. This is better. This is better. It could still be, and this is the problem that happens. We see this and we say, but I have to make the melody do, so, fa. And so we betray the cadence. And so what I think might be going on here, and I'm going to let this go because we're not going to kill it. I don't want you to try it out until after the class. But um, we tend, as a habit, because this is the way it's always been played, to front load this phrase. We go dee 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 da dum, dee 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 da dum, like the typewriter goes back, shaching dee 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 dee, shaching dee 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 dee, and it has that sound. But what if it's actually backward? Because the ending is the way it ends, like 5-1, and what if it's actually backloading? Dee 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 da dum. Da-yum. And so think about backloading it, or at least shifting. We tend to think phrase, oh, I've got to start playing so expressively. We throw all our tomatoes into the front of the cart and it tips forward, right? So think about it that way too, right? And again, the way you're going to do it is going to be, actually, I can't resist. Can you try that once? Just thinking, and again, if you want to loop in that C minor chord, take a minute to think through what would it sound like if you no longer were worried about connecting G, D, C. Don't finish it. Finish G, C. And that's the question again, right? Every time it's a question. Try it. Really resolve. Take your time. Time. Resolve. 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 Sarah, I'm Sarah, I'm so sorry. I wanted to get to the rest of the piece. What did you think of that, playing it this way? How did it sound or how did it feel?
It's different because I've always played it the way I played it before, but it makes a little more sense.
Okay. And the thing is, how you choose to actually say it, that's when we become like Shakespeareans and we say, well, to be or not to be, that is the question. There are a million ways to say it, but we have to acknowledge that there's an infinitive to be or not to be. That is the question. We can't change the grammar and we can't ignore there's a period at the end of the sentence. So what we just did was an example of just saying what's factually there. And then once we know that, we know the script better and motivation. And then we're like, okay, well, now if I want to make this actually, I really want to finish it, or I really want to make this question. And that's where your freedom is based on something that's structurally sound, right? Based on the music. So I'm always amazed, the, the total aplomb with which, you and I think all your classmates probably knowing just you're able to just do this. It's amazing. So I want you to just take 30 seconds to flip through your pages and think, okay, slow down into the second theme. Try to keep a true pianissimo, whatever that means to you. Think about what you're going to do to explode to fortissimo, and lastly, think about, with the time you have left, probably just how you're going to transition into the waltz. And if I don't cut you off, think about, I didn't even get there, but how are you going? The coda is more than just a chance for us to pass the competition round, right? It's this unmitigated outburst. How do you show us the reason for that? Okay, can you keep all that in mind? Take a good 30 seconds, a minute. Just think. I'm gonna mute myself, and you're gonna play, and then we'll have to move on. Sadly. Sarah, how, first of all, how did that sound or feel to you?
I think I need to work on a bit of the details a bit more, figure out what exactly how I want to transition into everything.
Of course, of course. I mean, and that's what you'll be practicing, right? That'll be your task and your play. But did you feel like you were engaged with communicating it, trying to communicate it out?
Yeah.
Okay, now I get to tell you, it came through. It really did. And the thing is, I really want to close with this. This piece gets picked to death by people who are too opinionated vocally for their own good sometimes. I think people just love to show how much they know or care. And I think that's great, but every single one of you cares just as much. And so there really, there isn't really a right way, and it's got to be right with you. And that's what you're going to be doing, is going to be figuring out exactly how to make those transitions do what you want it to do. And that's all within your hands, very much so. The only things, just to recap, that we talked about, and you can start looking at the entire piece this way, from the topical things like dynamics that actually, or tempo markings that start to give us a lot of more of a psychological picture what might be going on, to the harmonic sort of underpinning. And I do want to close with an observation that, you know, the other tune in this, guess what? Does that also end with a cadence or not?
Uh,
Yeah, that's another trap we'd fall into. And so be careful not to front load that either, especially anytime. And actually, you did it as you went on. And when you were kind of like, maybe you were just sort of improvise, you were kind of like improvising it and saying, let me tease out this and see how it goes. And you may notice, go back and listen, especially when you're doing after the. It was like, it was actually doing that with dee da finish, dee da dee dee. It was actually because you were kind of in the stream of thought, and then you didn't sculpt it the way that you did the first time through. So do think about that. That he gives us the paradox, but I think a world of possibilities. Bravo,
Thank you so much.
wonderful. My goodness. Emojis, emojis. Everyone's applause. Hello, Solomon. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. I can hear you for sure. Wow, bravo. Um, so within the same framework that we had with Sarah, I'm going to start off with a couple of the same questions actually. Just how long have you played this piece so far?
I've been working on it around like on and off for about a year.
Wonderful, wonderful. Have you performed it now a few times, or is this still work in progress before performing it publicly? Is this the first time?
I haven't performed it in public, but I did use it for college auditions.
Okay, okay, wonderful. Well, tell us a little bit. Just, I have some thoughts too I want to share with you, but just these movements, kind of where they are, where they're sitting with you right now in terms of what's their overall their structure, their content
hmm
for
Um,
you.
I think the second movement represents a sort of more internal music, whereas the first movement and third movement has a lot of like external conflict, tanks and bombs. Second movement is like more internal, and I think it represents some sort of like repressed nostalgia, um, the kind of feeling that I'm sure a lot of us felt a lot over the course of lockdown, just looking back at like when times were more normal. And then I suppose the third movement's rather straightforward. It's just extremely bombastic, like uh, kind of destructive. Has a sort of destructive energy, but like also victorious at the same time.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. And you know, your concept, such as you just verbalized, you have this recording. I want you to go back and watch yourself talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you're like me, I hate to watch myself talk, but actually, this is one where if all of you who are watching who play, I think we should all strive to be able to talk about it in this way,
Mm-hmm.
like you just did. It's very meaningful in this way for us, and it's going to change in your life. It may be at a different point, like Mr. Luder, like Jeff and I were just talking about the Chopin in our lifetimes, how it's changed, where it is now. But I love that detail, and the tanks and bombs, absolutely. With the connotations, when this was written, when it was in period in history. Solomon, so I want to start off with we're going to go to the second movement and the third, and I assume it's okay since we were running late. That we'll run over the 8:30 stop time. Thank you,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just the I want to start with a couple just observations actually, just mirror what I heard from out here. First of all, um, you have a craftsman spirit, and your detail, your attention to the detail, and your care with which you hear layers and transitioning points, like specifically within like the span of like over the bar line, like into a new section, or the timing. You really put a lot of care into that, and that comes through very clearly. Um, my first comment for the second movement kind of it comes out of what I just said. Your general like what I it's very admirable, and we all I think should strive to have that in our arsenal. Like thinking on the close to the level of what's happening from movement to movement, not movement, but bar to measure, like
Mhm.
harmony to harmony, and you're listening very carefully to that. My critique is that this music. I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm going to go on a bit of a talking tangent here. So,
Mhm.
um, you play it. It's very pianistic. For this music, that's a little too limited. The scope to
Mhm.
think like it's in every way it's beyond like there's so much you're doing that I just wouldn't reproach pianistically. It's like no, it's beautiful. It's you make the instrument sing, and it's just I mean the clarity, your voicing, everything is just it's wonderful. Um, but I draw your attention to another piece that was written right around this time. Do you know Romeo and Juliet,
Um,
Prokofiev?
not super well, but yes.
Well, that's a great Rosetta Stone piece, translating because obviously it's a ballet
Mhm.
and there's orchestrated, but then he also has 10 solo pieces from it for piano.
Mhm.
And comparing that side by side, and then you come back to this and you see the way it's written so many up stems, down stems, polyphonic things, and you realize this is orchestrated.
Mhm.
There's no other way around it. We have to hear an orchestrated sound here. We have to orchestrate at the piano. So taking it one step beyond pianistically voicing to the point of saying, okay, number one, it's orchestral, so is it winds? Is this, there's this wonderful, I love this when in the third or fourth page where he has the triplets and the 16th note triplets. I mean, what is that? That's not piano writing. Like, that's obviously like the entire string section in unison, right?
Yes.
And so we're sort of emulating or imitating that sound or projecting that quality. And if you the reason I say Romeo and Juliet, go after tonight if when you ever have a chance and just pull up a score or one of those nice YouTube videos that has the score with it from Janopoulos and just like watch it because you'll be like amazed and say, well, that's this that writing. And the second reason I bring it up is ballet. There's so much dance like in this, I think. And it doesn't mean that it has to be like everything is a waltz, but in the sense of in like character building, development of this narrative, like this nostalgia, as you say. Let's go back to your nostalgic feelings. And
Mhm.
so while you have that absolute connection with it, this strong connection, just know that the trappings of this movement, the trappings of the music, again, if I never heard it played before and I was only looking at the notes of this, comparing it with other things that he had written, I'd look and say, oh, yeah, well, I can see how this would be choreographed. It
Mhm.
would just pop out of the page like that. And that's the insight that I want to share with you to consider it again from that angle and say, okay, well, in that sense, when I follow through, and then you can look at your score and just follow with me. I don't know what edition you have and if the pagination is the same, but your first page, does it end with, I'm just going to use tempo markings if that's okay.
Mhm.
Sections Andante Caloroso, lyrical. I'm just holding up the mirror and telling you what I heard. Lyrical. At times, I kind of got lost in the lyricism. Like I didn't. I wanted to feel this pulse. Doom, doom, dee, dee, doom, bing, dum, bing. This is so Friar Lawrence. Ding, ding, dee, da, dum, bum, bing. And where I got lost was where this kind of was heading. So kind of the direction of it, and just being aware that it's a scene. You know,
Mhm.
then Poco Più Animato was super clear. It was like, oh, there's something new is afoot, and you did that really masterfully. I thought to transition, and right up to Più Largamente, like it made sense, and then it stopped making sense after your. There's that section with the. Badly. I'll just kind of tap it out. I wasn't sure what those two systems were. Just purely from a musical like intelligible, it's like, oh, okay, I'm not sure what and then there's poco ritato. It wasn't until the bottom when you get to the pianissimos with the bells or whatever they are, like
Mhm.
ding, da, da, that it's sort of you again, you had the narrative again and it was clear, so it was like really out of focus, so it was kind of like there were sections of this movement that went out of focus narratively and I wasn't sure what from just a purely like the entire emotional musical picture became kind of I don't know why.
Mhm.
And um if you were listening, or I don't know, maybe you were just warming up during Sarah's, but I was talking about how harmony is really the common ground we all have.
Mhm.
It's subjective, it's just there. We can't argue about it. It's just that's what I mean, we could argue about the details of where some phrase ends, but basically these sections are very clear. And so one general rule here is when things get really in Prokofiev, who's largely tonal, but when it gets really kind of noodly, or like the section I play, and we're sort of searching for something that's harmonic, right? Like that's very clear to us. What happens when we're not clear on it, oftentimes as pianists, is we just kind of emote more and we kind of just kind of make our way through it, and we have to resist the urge to do that. We have to clarify it. So it may be even mean sort of a general benchmark I do when I get to that section, or when I get to any section where it's like I was just told it wasn't clear. I'll have my students listen to me sometimes, uh, not when I'm practicing, but if I'm running through a program, and I'll ask them, and they've learned. They'll like, yeah, that page didn't make sense, Dr. Kim. I don't know what that was going. I was like, thank you. I'll work on it some more, because it's got to
Mhm.
be crystal clear to your audience. Like that's the clarity we want to project.
Mhm.
So I don't know what we could do. I want to save time for the third movement, but I had two thoughts. I'm There's so many wonderful things to dig into, but let's leave the first page aside and say what we're going to do on the second page with Pokopio Anemoto,
Mhm.
which was very clear from a sort of a uh, staged teleological, it was very clear. Um, but what I want you to do is for this section, and then you'll do this again for the first page after the classes, just take a look through and work with me here. Orchestrate this. So Poco Pionemoto, who starts playing here? Just
That
kind
could
of
either
help.
be cello, bass, or maybe like even bass clarinet.
Yeah, nice. Okay, and then so what's the first thing? Second bar, that triad, that third. That's gonna be something else, isn't it?
Mhm.
So you decide what that is, and then just what do you think?
I think that could be French horns.
Yeah, or maybe. And remember, if you're a conductor, clarity not only in terms of like, oh, they're playing the right notes and it's clear, but also for time for sounds to blossom and develop in the hall is
Mhm.
important. So that space, do you see what we're doing? It's like a Google map. You're really good right now at the street view. I'm zooming out and I want to see the entire city. I want to see where the traffic jams are. And then I want to go out even further and say, ooh, there's like a storm front for the entire West Coast. That kind of thing. So we're zooming out. All right. Keep going with me. And then just what are the bass notes going to be doing? Because they're all kind of D. You notice he writes entire bars like the next system done G, G flat, F sharp. I'm kind of already telegraphing who it is, but who might it be?
Yeah, probably the stringed basses.
Yeah, or a tuba if we really want, we want that sound. And then the last thing I want you to do, and we're just going to maybe play around with two or three bars until we get to the 16. In the second system, you see all that noodly stuff in the middle, in the left hand with the up stems?
Uh,
What is that? Who's that?
maybe violas.
Yeah, poor violas. I love violas. Like they always get the jokes made about them, but they are the center of the ensemble.
Mhm.
And you did what we good pianists do in those bars. You brought attention to our right hand. I want you to play that. Imagine that you have your flutes or your violins playing the right hand, whatever. But I really want to hear the guts. I want to hear the inside of the music. So what you're going to do is a recap. Sort of take a minute to sort of figure out. You're going to make it very clear. Or you said it might be a bass clarinet. Enter horns on the third, and then keeping that bass line connecting. So like in one ear you're watching your bass or your tubas and make sure they've got a legato, and then the violas enter, and that noodly stuff becomes sort of the real control, the middle, and on top of that you lay your melody, right? And then when you get a don't tell us, but just last thing before you play, think about where it's going to go when the 16th notes come in. Who's going to suddenly play that variation of what you just played?
Mm-hmm.
So Solomon, if you just take a minute and you can put up your score, actually, it would help, and then just show us just those three systems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay, thank you. All right, let's keep working on this. Um, can you play just the cello or just the bass clarinet? You know, and just as if you're just practicing their part alone. Can you play that for us? Okay. Question: did you ever change your bow or your breath?
Um, I'm not sure. I'm trying to have it be as much of a continuous line as possible.
Okay, here let's pause for a second. Now everyone's like, bow or breath, we're pianists, but we're on the same page, Solomon. It's like great, we're talking in our imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Continuity, one of the fallacies we have to be careful about is because we're all taught that it's all about constantly pasting over, and it's like spackling. There's no joint left. There's nowhere for the water to come out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, then when we listen to really nice orchestra playing, they have to stop to breathe and retake the bow. So that means it shouldn't be connected. So can you connect through the pauses that are necessary to articulate a line? Because part of connection, if I talk about my speech, if there were no pauses between words, and everything was just sort of allotting into this, and there were no words, and I'm connecting everything, and I'm going to talk like this, I'm going to talk like that. I'm connected, but you don't understand what I'm saying. So intelligibility is the thing that's necessary. You're going to connect, but it also has to be discrete things to be connected. Does that make sense? So
Mm-hmm.
be willing to break. Like now, imagine you're literally your bass clarinetist needs to breathe, maybe violins to you see articulation. And was it not connected?
Mm-hmm. It was.
So where's connection actually happening? Is it physical that the sound never stops?
Um, I guess it's with phrasing and like not really having any big bumps or big spikes in the trajectory of the phrase.
Yeah, or well, and I mean bumps or spikes are sort of sometimes part of it, but it's what you're saying is the trajectory of the phrase, it's psychological. It's in our minds, it's in our ears. We have the ability to put together, I mean, the Sugar Plum Fairy Dance, that's a melody. Everyone can sing it, and yet it's all staccato.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, 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 dum, bum. Because our mind can connect the dots. So trust the mind to connect the dots. Don't worry that you have to show us. We're all guilty of that as pianists. We're taught legato is this, everything has to be legato.
Mm-hmm.
But we betray the other part of music, which is not just smoothness, but articulation of the actual musical content, the words. So be brave to make that. Play just the Blaze Carnella. This is super important point. So just would you try it and be really let them breathe. Like as if you're pushing from the support. Try it. Try it again. Just that line. breathe. Good. Bowing. Sir. Yes. And that was so connected. And you know what was connected? The pitch
Mhm.
and the harmony underneath it. See, that's the psychological basis of it. It has nothing to do with never breaking the sound.
Mhm.
This is something we have to all kind of unlearn, from our basic learning. Now with that pacing in mind, I know we don't have time to do this, but you can do this for every single voice.
Mhm.
Your violas and now can you give everyone sort of now imagine you've got to harness 80 players. Can you play it again with that pacing in mind?
Yes.
Sure. I hate to stop you. Wow. It you let the music breathe and actually live its heartbeat.
Mhm.
That's what came across to me. I don't know how everyone else we would have a different, but we were kind of like, and then really this sort of comes back. I have to invoke the name of someone, Sergio Celibidache, who I know Mr. Lador and I we adore. He's a long since departed, but a Romanian conductor in the middle 20th century. Um, and he always would say at this point, so I totally stole this idea from him. It's look at the objectivity. Look at the objectivity. All we talked about was the framework of the music,
Mhm.
and yet something beyond you. You made it come to life. And did I tell you how to play it? I mean, Prokofiev wrote the notes,
Mhm.
right? So, and yet it's absolutely something individual. So, I mean, and it's like, how did you do that? Well, because the notes, you brought them to life. So
Mhm.
this is a really important shift in our thinking because we're all so conscientious, but it's not about us, and we have to constantly remind ourselves to go back and say it objectively what's going on here. And then when you find those moments, it's like the music just the power of it comes, you unlock it. You let it carry you. You let the notes play you. You didn't play the notes.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, on the next page, just I know I'm watching the time. I do want to get to the third movement. I'm just going to leave Solomon. I think you can take that and really apply that to the rest of this movement in so many different ways. And remember that what was happening on stage. That's one thing I want to imagine. Like, put your idea and imagine now you have ballet dancers who are actually telling the story. Or actually, I see mimes. I don't even see ballet dancers. I see pantomime, and
Mhm.
they're telling the story of Uranus. Maybe they're like giving someone a hug at the restaurant before they were meeting a party of 10, like that. Oh, and they see the emotion, right? And the time that they need to express that is also part of your concept. Just on the really think about one thing, you already solved the problem. By the way, earlier, Solomon, last thing on the Poco più mon animato, when it ends on the E minor, that didn't come out before when you were just worried about connecting. When you started articulating the line, you actually let the harmony take its time to. This is Prokofiev.
Mhm.
It does this until it's like, which way is the ball going to finally? It's going to turn up that way,
Mhm.
right? Which face of the die. Just note at the next page, it's the same idea. Like we're not
Mhm.
going to go into that because I want to go into the movement, but just know that harmonically that didn't make sense. And I think like similarly, like what you learned here, you needed the time to breathe and register as a new, again, Mr. Shelbidaki, a new harmonic perspective, not
Mhm.
just a harmony, but a new perspective needs time to unfold.
Mhm.
and you can't rush it.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're orchestrally, I can see we struck a note here together. So you're obviously thinking as a conductor too. So use that, use that. It's gonna pay huge dividends. Bravo. All right, third movement. Question. Okay, so this is the thing. How the heck do we, how many recordings have been made of this? How many people play this? Like, how the heck do
Hundreds probably.
hundreds, right? And everyone has their favorite benchmark. Oh, you got to hear the Richter, the Horowitz, the Argerich, blah, 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 And I'm not interested in that per se. I'm actually like, how do you make this completely unique again? Because that's the reason that Sarah with your ballad, same thing. You, Solomon with your sonnet, everyone, every time we sit down, the why, I hope for a day we'll all live to see that every time someone sits at the piano and says, I'm playing this piece of music, I'm playing Beethoven's Pathétique because it's the first time it's being played again when I play it.
Mhm.
So, but we have to actually be now craftsman-like and think, okay, how do we make that? So now let me challenge you. How do you make this different from everyone else?
Um, I try to I try to get the sensation of like you're driving a tank or something, and there's various levels of power at which you drive at, and like for certain dynamic markings, you just kick it up a notch, and it just goes at a higher power. And I try not to think too much in terms of like here I'm gonna do staccato, here I'm gonna do like more tenuto. I kind of just like play as like in the moment what I want to do as it's like it's very repetitive. So I'm just trying to like channel that into the most spontaneous and like uh I guess uh, I'm trying to channel the repetition into some sort of energy that's very raw, I think.
Okay. All right. All right. I'm gonna come back at you with a critique of what you just told us. Again, wonderful detail,
Mhm.
wonderful imagination. Um, but I think that's pretty much what everyone hears when they play it too. I'm I'm in the middle of a war zone. I'm driving a tank. I'm I'm trying to create this rhythm. I'm trying to, right?
Mhm.
So let's flip that narrative on its head. How can we let's keep the tank idea. How do you shift the perspectives so that we can try imagining something different? I'm just saying based on what I heard you play and correlating that and saying, okay, now it makes sense. And the end result is it does sound like this. Again, it's, please don't take this personally, but a very standard last movement. Like, oh yeah, that's it. Like, and it's very impressive. But how would you flip that on its side? How do you flip a tank on its side?
I'm not sure.
Okay, let me propose something. Um, Instead of you driving the tank, what would this piece sound like if it was the viewpoint of a soldier in a foxhole and a tank was coming at him, and the terror of a tank coming at you?
Mhm.
That would be very different
Yes.
from a hey, we're driving, isn't this awesome? But imagine the rocks are rumbling and then you see the turret coming over and then it's coming down the hill. It's like it's coming our way. We don't have it. We don't have what if they see us? We're dead. You know.
Mhm.
Um, so let's talk about a few things. Number one, number one, big one, and very beginning. I'm going to focus on two passages, but I think again this is going to give you, I hope, some tools. The very very beginning. Where is the downbeat?
Um, that just
The way you play it. Yeah, well, that's where it's written. Where did you play the downbeat?
I'm I was trying to feel it on that on I was yeah trying to feel it on that note.
Yes, I good. I mean, actually, the thing that when I look at this page, and again, this might seem like really nerdy to point this out, but it's like I always hear in every recording, every single recording, every performance, including what you played, that the downbeat was actually in the C sharp. The dee dum. So it's like an upbeat. Da, da, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, da, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, da, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, which is not what's there, right? You want
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, da, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's very different. Can you de-emphasize? It's tricky because it obviously is an accent, but the accent became a downbeat. That's a that's a really common mistake, and we all have it in our heads. But can you show us a different way? This is not exactly the tank idea. That I have a plan for that too, so fear not. But I just want to show us what we all pianist world has been getting wrong.
Mhm.
Show us. Take a but look at it first. Look at it. Like I don't I want you to think. Try to imagine. Go ahead. Yeah. Okay. Let's take this apart. It's so ingrained in your mind. I'm still feeling the downbeat. Let's just do the right hand alone.
Mhm.
Okay. So, as suspected, there's no rhythm there at all right now. Let's work on that. Let's create until do it a few times until it's very clear that it's like a 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 until I feel 7/8 notes. Play it again, the right hand alone.
Mhm.
Okay. Here's something. Can you do this? This is a great conducting exercise too. Like on your lap. Can you do that? I mean, if you can, if you can't, you can always do it with a just a B flat on the bottom. So let's hear a real eighth note pulse and see if you can like now, and you can do it quietly. Do, 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 do. Go ahead.
Mhm.
Okay, better, but still now let's group those eighth notes into 7/8. Now it's like you just play like 56 eighth notes. Dee, da, 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 dee. By the way, Solomon, is it 3 plus 2 plus 2? Is it 2 plus 3 plus 2? How are you dividing your 7? How are you going to conduct it? Dee, da, dee, da, da, dee, da, dee. Or is it dee, da, da, dee, da, 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 dee, da, da? How are you going to divide it?
It's 2 3 2.
So 1 2 1 2 3 da, da, dee. All right. Can you show us that? Play a couple of eighth notes. Da, 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 da. You know what it's becoming? 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. Be really critical. 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. So if we're taking it apart, the problem is that we're so used to wanting to hear da 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 da. So you have to be careful to not to show us that there's an actual a disconnect. Again, here's a problem of connecting everything between those two groups of two. So da
Mhm.
da 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 da. You see, like, so you have to actually delineate the two twos. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Try it again. Just da 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 da. Yeah, yeah. So now it's becoming kind of like 3 and 4. You get the idea. All right, so we're gonna move on. So slow it down a little bit. Da 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 da, and then after a few times, come in with it. Da 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 dee dee da 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 dee. Let's take it down a notch. Da da da
Okay.
da 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 da.
Uh, when like with the left hand like on one note or
Yeah. So like, I think it's too fast right now. But if you're like about that tempo, da da dee da 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 dee
Mhm.
da 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 da. Okay, you know what, Solomon? I started hearing something different in the beginning. Then you went back into your old habit. So just know that that groove, that is like a rut that we pianists have been stuck in since at least like 1942 or whenever like Richter made the recording. I think that's like a mistake from then on. I still have yet to hear one that plays it like, we've been stuck in that but beat
Mhm.
but you actually broke out of it. Now what happens? This is gonna be hard. So keep it, no shame here in front of friends. Workshop it at that sort of under tempo, and use your right hand to guide your left. Don't base. Everyone tends to da dee dum as the leader. Now your leader's dum dum ba 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 da da dum.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you? Before we move on from here, do you see how you keep shifting the downbeat?
Um.
You keep going to the third eighth note, or yeah. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. Da dee dum. You're always putting the downbeat on three.
Mhm.
Just know that that's what's coming across.
Mhm.
And if that's your intention, if you decide, you know what, I think it was just there, fine. But I think that it is something we're so used to hearing that if you've never thought about putting the downbeat back where it belongs, it's worth doing it. And then you can put it back at the third, but maybe it'll sound more intentional,
Mhm.
and you know what I'm saying? Like just because everyone plays it like with the emphasis on the third, I'm just saying you have a chance to correct that. Okay?
Mhm.
Do you want to try one more time?
Sure.
Just one more time, then we'll move on to our tank. Yeah. Okay. Yep, it's getting better. It's getting better. In the bar five,
Yes. Bar five.
dum da 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 dum ding. Let's see. 1, 2, 1, 2, ding, da da dum. You know, can you conduct like the people when they do like no, slash and triangle? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Do this with me. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. And if you do, this is tricky, but like dum ba da da dum dum ba da da dum. That's what it is. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Do you see what happens when it's in the middle of a triangle? Ba da ba bum ba da ba. It's got this whoa kind of feeling.
Yes.
So be aware of that. You're tending to come down on everything.
Mhm.
So again, this is something that we think motoric, Prokofiev, piano playing, and that's why I think we all end up playing it the same. But if you're doing dum ba da da dee dee da 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 dee ba da da dee dee da 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 ba da da ba da da ba da da ba da da. So the problem is you're not feeling that eighth rest as a sort of a it's knocking you off. If you're hearing it as 2 and 3 and 2, does it make sense?
Mhm.
So dum ba da da. Anyway, to be continued another time with that. Let's go forward to this section. And I just wanted to go to the section where when you finish, it's the retransition when you like. Okay, now, how long? This is Prokofiev classic, right? How long
Mhm.
does he make us listen to A?
Pretty long time.
Yeah, right. Until that A is actually T going to do, and it's like, and you did this thing with the hairpin. You got really, really violent, and it was like, wow. But I didn't feel the tension in this. And that's something that I want you to focus on as an other means rather than like the excitement and the sort of pianism, the dynamism of your pianistic playing, which is wonderful. But I want you to go back to maybe 4 bars before, right?
Mhm.
And I want you to just da, da, da. And if you follow that line, and let's, for the sake of practice, let's take it down to about 80% tempo. And we're going to
Mhm.
create, I'm going to direct you now. We're going to create the picture of the tank coming at you that Your focus point is no longer da ba da ba, but and then wherever the A happens to migrate, I want you to focus like a madman on that A.
Mhm.
And don't let go. Don't stop concentrating on it. It's one way to think of it, by the way. Last, where you're starting, détaché. It says détaché, right?
Um.
Détaché.
Yes.
So, okay, count with me. One bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. And the resolution comes on 23.
Mhm.
Okay, I want you in your mind, every bar to be like one, two, three, four, five, and do not lose count of that, and do not break that count. Okay?
Mhm.
Try it like a 22 bar phrase. Here we go. Okay, yeah. Now, you broke one place. Do you know where you did?
I'm not sure.
It was when you had the you hesitated once. I think it was between the second and the third of them.
Mhm.
So it elongated the bar just enough that all the tension was like poof, all the steam went out of the balloon, right?
Mhm.
But up till then, oh my word, it was like it was like seeing this thing coming at you from a
Mhm.
distance. That is more terrifying than any. You could play quintuple fortissimo and the piano breaks and the legs fall down and everything, and then the stage blows up, and it wouldn't be as exciting as what you just did. I
Mhm.
was like, oh my goodness. But you see the power of counting, like 2 and 3. Do you want to try one last time and then we're going to stop? I think we're at time, well over time. But would you do that one more time? Just keep an eye on it, and your concentration has to be fanatical. Like ba da 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 da, and don't be late getting to those A's either. Da 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 da. Like be absolutely like a tank.
Mhm.
Try it. Yes, yes. That's exciting.
Mhm.
That's exciting. And I mean, like, it's again, it's the power of the notes. They play you.
Mhm.
So I want you to just kind of try these ideas. And again, you have a wealth of resources already, and just more than enough, though you need. Um, and to really think about like uh, not only in a melodic sense, but in this rhythmic sense, that when you concentrate, you force us to connect.
Mhm.
All right, and that's the name of the game. It's not about dynamism, all that's in, but the concentration will trump everything else. So, bravo, wonderful.
Thank you.